Dennis Shoemate. I was born in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, April 7th, 1947. It was good, really. Didn't have any problems. Had a lot of fun. We lived quite a ways out of town, so we got all these woods and everything to play in, and got along good with little neighbor kids. Didn't have a lot, didn't have much, but we made do with what we had, like stick horses and swinging on grapevines and stuff. Didn't have a lot of, fancy toys or anything. 2 sisters, Linda and Carol. But yeah, we used to play together all the time. Like I said, out where we lived, there weren't many other kids, so they were good, didn't have any problems. They both worked, my mom worked. Good, we got along good. It was a good family. He was in the Army in World War II and just came back. To me, he seemed like he was strong, He never got upset over anything.
Did he ever talk to you about World War II, or was he pretty quiet about that?
No, not much. Just every now and then he'd say something. Just like where he was and some of the stuff that happened, but not really anything specific. Good mom, she worked, she took care of us. I don't think we wanted for anything. I mean, if we needed clothes or anything like that, there was no problem getting them. And I can remember when the house we lived in had no running water or no bathroom, and I remember washing the clothes in a little pan, out there washing them like that. Everything seemed good, made do. Yeah, if we wanted water, we had to go outside with the pump, had a hand pump the water, and the bathroom was in an outhouse up in the woods a ways. You had to walk up there in the dark a lot of times.
Probably kind of scary as a kid.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. I don't recall it being scary.
Okay.
But maybe that's because we lived out there in the woods, was used to it. Didn't be afraid of stuff like that. As a kid, I think the only thing I remember being really scared of was my grandma and my aunts lived in town. And whenever we go to town, during that time, right after the war, there was this old guy who used to drive around this old truck, and he'd collect rags. I don't know what he did with them. They recycle, I don't know. But he used to drive down the road, and all you could hear was he'd be going down the road going, rags, rags. And all his kids were scared to death of him. I remember, I must have been pretty small. I mean, when we went to like my grandma's or my aunt's house who lived in town, I remember in the backyard playing with some trucks, and there was a little kid lived next door, and there was a fence between the house, like in town, and we dug a hole under the fence and used to exchange toys. And then, like I mentioned about my mom washing clothes in a wash pan, she was out there in the porch washing clothes one time in the pan, and I fell in it. She had starch in it, and they always tell me that I'm gonna get stiff. Now I ended up turning all stiff. And I was a little kid then, really little. I remember those things. Well, the ones we used to play with where we lived were more or less relatives, cousins. We lived on a place called Chestnut Hill, and that was out in the woods, and that's where it seemed like all relatives lived. Mm-hmm. So you more or less played with one of your relatives.
Do you remember what your dad did for work?
The first memories I have, he worked at Firestone Tires. He worked there for a long time till he retired. Since it was shortly after the war, they were still self-conscious or whatever about it, and still had fences and everything around, and you couldn't go in. And they even had on the factory, it was a big flat roof that they flooded with water to make it look like a lake from the air in case somebody was going to come bomb it. So, and they still had guards and guard towers, so it was, that stuff was still in everybody's mind, so you couldn't really go in there. They still got the war on their minds,
mm-hmm.
Even though it was over, but then you're starting a Cold War with Russia. We did eventually get water and indoor plumbing and a new house, build a new house. I remember I used to go to the bathroom. I didn't know you were supposed to shut the door or flush the toilet. I remember that. Mainly, I know my dad was always honest and hard worker, I hope I picked up the hard work from him, I'm not sure. But on the honest part, I still believe in that. just to pick out, just to be good, you know. I mean, I've never been an outlaw or anything, so I'm sure that came from them, because there were some relatives that were outlaws. When I was little, we had this different house we moved to, and it was out there in the middle of nowhere in the same area, and it had like a little garage under it. Late one night, I remember my aunt and uncle came knocking on the doors, and they were talking to my dad, and then my other uncle came, when the neighbor's uncle, and they were all out there talking, and next thing I know, I hear them down under the house in the garage, and they brought a car in there. I snuck down the steps so I could look to see what was going on, and it was my aunt and uncle who were from Virginia. His name was Vern, her name was Vesely. They both chewed tobacco. She carried a gun, and he always wore a suit coat with a tie, and I think he might have wore a fedora sometime. But he carried a Bible in his left coat pocket and a gun in his right coat pocket. Well, they were there to hide their car to get it fixed because it had bullet holes in it. The police were chasing them because they were running moonshine, and so they brought the car there to patch the bullet holes and paint it. Mm-hmm. Of course, I snuck down there the next morning to look at the car and look at the bullet holes and everything. That was back in them days, you know, I mean, early 50s. Well, I always went out in the woods up on the mountain or hill, and I stayed out there wandering around and everything. Every time they wanted me, they couldn't find me. And sometimes my dad had to go out looking for me. So they bought this big cast bell, and they put it up. So whenever they wanted me, they'd ring that bell. And you could hear that bell for a couple miles. At my aunt and uncle's house or some other neighbor's house playing, they'd hear that bell. They'd say, "It's time for you to go home." Everybody knew what the bell was. My dad used to hunt a lot. I'd go with him sometimes, tag along with him. And then I got my own little gun, and I'd go with him hunting. Well, he smoked a pipe. He used to keep his tobacco in a little pouch. And yeah, that was my first gun. He'd always, dip into his pouch and fill his pipe and smoke it as he was walking. The pouch opened in his coat pocket of his hunting coat, and the tobacco spilled in there. So I just seen him, he would say something down, he dipped his pipe in his coat pocket to get tobacco, packed it down in there, lit it, and we started walking. All of a sudden there was this big bang. He dipped the bullet into there, and the thing exploded and took the whole front of the pipe off. All he had was a little stem stuck in his mouth. This was my first little gun. Darren fixed it up real nice. It used to be kind of ratty looking. Yeah, of course, we used to drag race, to being kids, And there was this one cop, his name was Will. He acted like he didn't like young kids. He was a little real pain. I mean, jeez. One night, I think he was in this little restaurant, I think it was. His patrol car was sitting there beside the building, kind of dark, so we got this dumb idea. We had a chain. We got a chain and some big long bolts and stuff. And we went under his car and run the chain and bolts to what's called universal joints. You got a drive shaft that connects with these joints, and you get something through there. So we hooked it there and then run the chain back. I think it might have been to the rear springs or somewhere. Then of course we went up the street and set. So when he come out to get in the car, the drive shaft started turning, wrapped the chain around when he went to pull out. And just a big bang, just ripped everything loose underneath his car.
Didn't you all go racing by so he would chase after you?
Well, yeah, we took off, but he couldn't go after him. We did that, poor guy. After that, he stopped us one night. We had a carload of people. The car. It wasn't my car, I was in the back seat. So we had some beer in the car, and he stopped us just for no reason and made us get out. That's before anybody knew about, all these laws and everything. Made us get out of the car, and he looked all through it and found the beer. So he arrested all of us. I called my uncle, so my uncle come to the police station and got me and took me home. Told my dad it was funny, you know. He thought it was funny. But we had to go to court. So when we went to go to the court, the county court, Wilt was like the police in what they call North Coventry. We lived in South Coventry. So the cop from South Coventry, who knew all of his kids, he come to court. I don't know what he said to the judge, but he had talked to the judge. When it come time for the trial, Wilt was sitting there to testify, but the judge just instantly, before they even had a trial, dismissed it because of what the cop that knew us told him. You know, you couldn't do that nowadays, you know. They dismissed. I know Wilt was really mad about that. No, I didn't really drag race that much on the street. I just go and watch it, you know. Big long straightaway there on what was called Route 23 in Amish country, and there was some Amish lived right there. But we used to drag race late at night right there by where the Amish had some of their farms. One night, I think it was, some Amish come up the road. They had their buggy, and it was getting late. They had little lanterns on, and they come up and stopped. The old Amish guy said, "Are you going to be out here racing again or anything?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Every night you come out here," he said, "you make so much noise and vibration it knocks the blankets right off me when I'm trying to sleep." They didn't really get upset over much of anything. See, my relatives were all from out in the mountains. Went to a couple of funerals there. Their funerals were they'd have the body in the house, in the living room of the house, just laying there all night. And everybody would sit around and drink. As a matter of fact, that's where I got my first taste of moonshine, at one of the funerals. And they'd sit around and playing banjos and fiddles and singing around the body there all the time, all night long. They'd be banjos and fiddles and playing and drinking moonshine.
Aww.
That was what they did before the funeral the next day. I'd worked at a gas station a little bit and a car wash before I got out of school, you know. And then of course we used to help the farmers during harvest time, because you know we'd walk behind the wagon and pick up hay bales and throw them on the wagon. And then an apple orchard, used to pick apples where they make apple cider in the fall, stuff like that, or pick rocks up out of the fields. You know, they plow it up, they have rocks plowed up, and we'd go out there and pick up rocks. I think school was fun, but I didn't like the schoolwork. I wasn't exactly a straight A student. I mean, I passed, made it through, but I didn't like that part. Oh yeah, I don't know if you know this guy. We used to hang around together and go at Darrell Hall. Yeah, him and I hung around together all the time. He was different back then. He was like a nerd. I mean, he was really...
He wasn't the cool singer that you...
No. He, you know, wore his pants up real high and wasn't nothing like he is now. His hair was combed, every hair in place, and straight A student. Well, since we lived not that close, but not that far from Philadelphia, and that's where a lot of the music was coming from back then. So all the singers used to come to our school to sing at the dance. And, you know, you hear these singers that are on there now that back then were real famous. Oh yeah, Chubby Checker.
Okay.
Yeah, it was my mom's friend.
American Bandstand.
Yeah, that was Dick Clark with the American Bandstand. That was a big popular thing back then.
Yeah.
But everything we had, all the school dances, the proms, were all live music, all you know, known singers. One teacher that was giving us problems, he drove a Volkswagen Bug. One day we were out in the parking lot. There was a sidewalk and then like a little hill and then another sidewalk up above there. Enough of us were able to pick the car up and carry it up to the upper sidewalk and set it up there. Mom and Dad told me that the FBI was going to come see me one time, because I don't know if you ever heard of the Yuri Gagarin. It was the first man in space, a Russian, and of course we were having the Cold War then. Well, he was the first man in space. So for some reason, I have no idea why, I was in 9th grade, I wrote him a letter, and I figured I'd never get to it, you know. And he answered. I got a letter back from him, and with pictures. He sent me pictures, autographs, and everything. And so my mom and dad would say, "Oh, yep, yeah, I'm gonna come get you. That's Russia, we're in a Cold War with them,
So you just met Lorraine and
Yeah, I met her in school. My first wife, met in high school. There's not really too much to tell, except her whole family were Italians.
And you had one son out of your that first marriage?
Yeah, it didn't last long, but I think he was born in '66. I went over to Vietnam in '68. I mean, we're real close now. Wasn't much going on back then.
What was his name?
Brian. I didn't get drafted. I just joined. So I was like a little older than most everybody else. I don't even know why I joined, really. I didn't even know the meaning of patriotism until I come back.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
when you were in AIT, you all went on a trip to the rodeo. What happened at the rodeo?
Well, we were new in the Army, just new recruits. So, of course, they teach all this stuff. Like, American flag comes by, you got to stand up and salute. They took us to a rodeo one time as a break in training in Louisiana. This rodeo. So, of course, they had, play the national anthem and everything, and stand up, and salute the flag. And then we all sat down. And then this girl kept riding her horse with a big American flag around circles in the arena. Well, every time she come by, we'd stand up and salute. Sit down, she come by again, stand up and salute. AIT is it's advanced individual training.
Okay.
Like whatever they're going to put you in, that's where you go to the training for that.
Mm-hmm. What did you train in for specifically?
Well, they sent me to infantry because as soon as I got there, these guys come in from, these rough, tough, badass Rangers, and they were looking for other people to join. So I went, I will. So I went there. I don't know why I did it. Well, like I told you at one time, I look back at it now, I just think, what the hell was I thinking? I liked it. Mm-hmm. I thought it was good duty. That's why I went back a second time. I wasn't like everybody else, my life was going PTSD. I didn't. I thought it was good duty. When they sent me back home after my tour, I couldn't stand the peacetime army here. So that's why I volunteered to go back. I thought that was better duty than here. You didn't need money. You didn't have anything to worry about, bills or rent and everything. It was just easy going, I thought. Mm-hmm. I thought it was good duty.
When you signed up to be a ranger, what did you have to do for training to be a ranger?
The rangers I was going to was what they call combat intelligence. You're 4-man teams. If they got intelligence report that there's a battalion of NVA in this area, like 500 people, well, they'd send us out to find them. So we'd go out and look for them. Well, when you went to that school, you had to go through all this training. Matter of fact, there was a thing on television about it. They called it School from Hell, because not many people pass it. You had to jump out of a helicopter, slide down ropes. You had to swim so far to graduate. You had to run so far with a 30-pound sandbag on your back, and you had to carry a rifle because snipers would shoot at you while you was running. It was that ranger school, and if you managed to do everything, you graduated and became what they call a LRP, long-range patrol person. And then you went to the ranger unit and you went out and pulled missions. Everything was secret. Even our own Army people did not know where we were out there or what we were doing. We were out there sneaking around looking for these people. Well, a lot of times if we'd find them and we're supposed to take pictures of them and see how well they are, in uniforms, if they're good. If they discovered we were there, we'd turn around like hell, We didn't hang around because there was only 4 of us and 500 of them. Sometimes we'd call back and say, oh, we found these people out here, we know where they are. We'd send them a location. A little bit later, they'd call back to us and want to know how well trained they were. So they said, pick a fight with them, see how they react. See, if they acted real good, they're well trained, Then we run.
When you said pick a fight, how'd you do that?
Shoot at them, shoot a couple of them. One time, we were in this one shootout, which was pretty close, you know, and they brought us out. They come in and rescued us and brought us out, and then we went to a mess hall to eat. And I remember, you know, we were just kidding around about what happened to us and all that stuff. Didn't feel scared or nothing, but I went to pick up a cup of Kool-Aid to drink, and my hand was just shaking like that, just splattered all over. So I guess my body was scared, but I didn't realize it.
So when were you captured?
That happened '69. Well, we were out on a mission. I wasn't a team leader then. I was just a regular team member. And we were out looking for these people. And so we sat down to take a break before we called to have a helicopter meet us somewhere to take us out. So we were sitting there, you know, knowing we're going to be taken out that day. There were some bombs dropped in the area, so there was damage around. There were big trees laying there. So I walked over to them and sat down with my back against these logs, sitting there with my gun on my lap. And the other guys were like sitting over, you know, around the other way. And I heard a noise behind me. So I kind of turned around and looked, and here's this guy standing with a pistol right at my head. And there were two other people with him. And he was saying something to me, saying, I don't know what he was saying. I seen him kind of jerk, and then he turned the gun sideways to look at it. I guess he pulled the trigger, but didn't go off. So I don't remember doing it, but I come up with my rifle and killed all three of them. I got the bullet out of the gun, still have it.
How was your luck flying in helicopters?
Oh yeah, the helicopter was shot at, shot up, and shot down.
So it's kind of a miracle that you came out
Was
unscathed.
that helicopters that were shot at, was in helicopters that were shot up, and one that went down. So I'd say it was shot at, shot up, and shot down. The first tour was 14 months. You're only supposed to, the tour is 12 months. But I got extended 2 months because we had some missions to do, and I stayed for 2 more months before I come back. And then I come back and didn't like it back here. So I volunteered to go back again. Well, the first time we were out in the field, we slept on the ground, or we had a little bunk in the hooch. The second time I lived in the sewer pipe,
What's a hooch?
like a barracks thing, you know. It's just boards nailed up with tin roof. Oh yeah, she sent me some back onions mostly, because that's what I wanted, is onions. Couldn't get onions over there. But everything else you get there, or from the villagers that were around. You know, you get stuff from them, they come around. As a matter of fact, I got a picture up there of this one lady. It was she was a mountain yard. They had these people they called mountain yards. They lived in little grass huts and everything. They weren't your regular Vietnamese. They were like indigenous type. They wore a little loincloth, and the women didn't know where their tops. You know, they were natives. Well, she'd come around all the time and give me pineapples and all this kind of stuff. I forget her name. I knew her name, but but you know, you get stuff from them, or you can buy stuff from them. You know, like, I never ate Asian food till I was there. Now I eat it all the time. Well, they ate a lot of bugs, lizards, and they gave me egg one time, and I thought they were hard-boiled eggs. So you know, I thought, oh yeah, I'll take some hard-boiled eggs. So I went to crack it open, and what it was it was all brown, icky looking with a little dead baby chicken in it. They just eat them. I did not eat it. All this weird stuff I'm telling you, I have stuff to back it up. Some of
There's
these stories,
proof.
some of these stories nobody would believe. You know, like that bullet thing. But you know,
Yeah.
I got newspaper articles and everything on that. They wrote newspaper articles about it. We had a mortar attack one day back in the base camp where we lived in with the hooches. We had regular cots, and my mom sent me a a package, and there was a box of Ritz crackers in there. So I was sitting on my bunk eating the Ritz cracker, and all of a sudden these mortars started coming in. And of course, left the building, ran out to get in a bunker to hide. And when I came back in, a mortar come through the roof, the tin roof come down. My Ritz crackers that were laying in my bunk, this mortar stuck right through them. I got a picture of it in one book out there. There's this mortar stuck through my Ritz crackers. The four of us were going down this steep hill out in the jungle. And on your belt, you carry grenades and everything. On a grenade, you've seen grenades, you know, they always show them pulling the pin, and there's a, what they call a spoon on it. So if you pull the pin, you hold that, and then you let it. Well, the screw just screws into a grenade, and then it used to hook onto your belt with that spoon. Well, we were going down this steep hill one time, I heard this thump, and here comes this grenade rolling down right beside us. So of course we all dove for the weeds. Well, what it was, the guy in the back, it came unscrewed. It fell off his boat. It didn't have the fuse in it. It wasn't going to explode, but it fell off his belt. It was rolling down there. We all thought somebody threw it at us. So we all dove into the weeds. And then, of course, everybody checked their grenades after that. And Butch, my dingo, he was a little tiny pup. Well, somebody shot him and the bullet went to the back of his neck. Because, you know, like they're like wolves over there, so people shoot them right away and see him. So I picked him up, and there was a Army dog unit that had scout dogs. So I took him there, and they patched him up and everything. And I kept him and fed him, and as he got bigger, he just stayed with me, followed me everywhere, sleep right beside me. He was just my little pet, my dingo. I didn't even realize he was a dingo. I thought he was a dog. So I took him up there to the dog platoon. They said, "This ain't a dog. This is a dingo." He never growled, or of course they can't bark. A dingo can't bark, but he never growled at me or anybody. If you were going somewhere and he was with you, and there was a bunch of Vietnamese there, because they used to work on the Army post, everybody got out of the way. You had open path. They're scared to death of dingoes because they used to attack people. And I go walking up with that dingo, everybody moved.
And then I heard you had a monkey.
No, I didn't have a monkey. Other people had monkeys. And especially this one guy had a monkey that was an alcoholic. He would drink all the time and get drunk and get real mean. There are monkeys all over the place over there. They're not as nice and friendly like they show on television. You know, not really. They get into everything, they steal stuff, they'll attack you. They're not nice. And they had all kinds of neato animals over there you've never seen before. You know, every now and then you'd stumble across an elephant out in the jungle. Of course, they had a lot of snakes too, a lot of weird bugs, big bugs. It was just interesting seeing them all. We were out on a mission, and I was sitting there and I seen this tiger coming. The first tiger I ever seen in the wild. Well, he stopped and he was staring at us. I figured, what's he doing? And he got down like a crouch, when they were stalking, and he started stalking, coming. And I kept watching. Finally, when he got so close, I just shot him. You know, he had me worried, had me concerned. But then we had to run away because I tried to get some teeth out of him, but we had to get out of the area because we shot a gun and the bad guys would hear it. Vietnam was divided. North Vietnam, South Vietnam. North Vietnam was more or less allied with China. So, you know, communist. And then South Vietnam, they more or less broke away and they wanted to be like democratic type stuff. You just had friction there and they just started this war. North wanted to take over the South and make them the tent. So they just, you know, got in a little battle there. And of course, South Vietnam was an ally of the United States, so the United States, Australia, South Korea, British, they were all sent people there. You know, not as many people as the United States did, but that's all it was. It was more or less North trying to take over South Vietnam. Before, once you scared them, that made them think that you were going to kill them in a heartbeat, you know, to keep them under control. I'm scared. And then when you get back and you sit them down and take the blindfold off and give them something to drink and like a cigarette or something or candy bar. You know, some of them could speak broken English. They didn't want to be there. Matter of fact, we had one that went to college here in the United States and got drafted by North Vietnamese. You know, they didn't. They were just young kids like us. You know, were forced into something they didn't want to do. You know, a lot of people didn't. Like, you know, the regular big units. You know, they go and take them. You know, they don't have the opportunity like we had to sit there and talk to them. Found out they weren't any different than we are. It was that meal that they invented. They used to call lerp ration. They made it just for everything. Was like freeze dried stuff. And it's kind of like the Army meals they have now, but they first invented them there. Just I guess maybe we were guinea pigs testing them. I don't know. That's what we ate, and then the regular Army C rations when we were out in the field. Oh geez, it was canned goods, like, you know, maybe spaghetti, a can of spaghetti, and you always had a can with a biscuit or something in it, and maybe a can of fruit and coffee and cream and sugar and salt and 4 cigarettes and 2 chiclets, something like that. Yeah.
What kind of Kool-Aid did you have?
Green. All the Kool-Aid they had was green Kool-Aid. They had these candy bars. This is another thing that wasn't handed out to the rest of the Army, just us as a test. There was a big candy bar, big square piece of chocolate, but it was made so it wouldn't melt in the heat. They were nasty. Like, you know, every time you're going down a road or something, all these little kids would come right out. The poor little kids, they didn't have clothes on, you know, they had old dirty clothes they picked up. We'd be standing around the road and wanting stuff. So we started giving them the candy bars. So they got known as mountain yard bars, because, you know, these mountain yard kids. And so we'd save them all up and give them all these kids all the time.
So you got along with the village people?
Yeah, especially one village. They gave me a bracelet. I got a bracelet up there that they gave me to wear. And being accepted in by the village or something. You know, these were people that still use spears and bows and arrows and grass shacks. And yeah, they didn't like anybody. They didn't like the regular Vietnamese people, you know, who were fancy just like back here, you know, in towns. Stayed away from everybody. They didn't. The helicopters they didn't have doors on the side. When we were going out on a mission, we'd sit in the doorway with our feet like here dangling out over the helicopter, just sitting on the edge, 2 here, 2 there. Well, helicopters didn't want to land out there because, you know, the booby traps would get shot. So when you were going in for them to drop you off, where you told them you wanted to be dropped off, they'd want you off that helicopter really quick, and they wouldn't land. So when that helicopter come in and started hovering, boy, they was yelling, "Get off!" You know, 2 off this side, 2 off that side. You know, get off so you can take off and get out of there. Sometimes they were fairly, I mean, not real high, but maybe I'm saying like maybe 6, 8 feet sometimes. Sometimes they get a little lower, which was good because you had a big backpack on and ammo and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Had a lot of weight. You know, they had code books. We had secret code books, and we'd send a code. And before we went out, as a team leader, I'd have a map of the area where they'd show us they want us to check. I'd take the map, and I'd go out and do what they call VR, visual recon. I'd fly in a helicopter or an airplane over the area, and I'd look down with the map and look at it, and I'd mark places on the map, like locations, some of them for to be, you know, extracted, and I'd give them names. You know, give them people's names, or like name one, this is Junction City, this place is Abilene, just there. So when we wanted to come out, just call back and say, you know, I forget what we said about being picked up, but I'd say like Abilene, you know, because, you know, the North sometimes listen in on radios. So we had code words for everything. Or if we had to call an artillery, he'd say like 200 meters north of Abilene. So, the bad guys wouldn't know where we're talking about. But the back in the rear, they had a copy of the map where I marked everything. I think I only got pulled out with a ladder maybe once, which is bad. But no, they'd come in and they'd hover a little bit, and you'd have to step up on the skid and jump in. And of course, they were anxious for you to get in there and get out of there. Like I said, helicopters did not want to be near the ground over there. They wanted to be out of there. Nobody knew where we were. The Army people had no idea where we were. It was secret. Everything we did was secret, kept from everybody. So,
Were you ever under attack by our own country?
yeah, one time we accidentally met an Army unit and they opened up on us. The North Vietnamese would kill us instantly. They wouldn't take us prisoners because of who we were. They had reward posters for us and everything. I don't know where I got it, but they had a wanted poster, and they had it was written in Vietnamese, but they had how much money they were paying for, and they had like a picture that was drawn of like one of us, And regular the Vietnamese, they thought we were the greatest thing in the world because we didn't wear like helmets and stuff. When we were back at the base, we had these hats that looked like cowboy hats. And then when we went out in the field, we wore anything, tied a rag around our head, did anything. We didn't wear regular Army uniforms either. We had stuff made, we ragtag looking. But since we wore those cowboy looking hats, the Vietnamese loved cowboy movies. And so they thought we were cowboys that were sent over there to get the bad guys. So they really thought we were neat. They used to always want us to try to get them a pair of boots or a cowboy hat or something. I was more or less tied up with those mountain yards to build these people out in the jungle. I didn't mess too much with the regular Vietnamese people. I don't regret doing it, but I certainly would not want one of my kids doing what I did. And like I said before, like I told Ann that one day, mine was just wondering, I was thinking, the hell were you thinking? I thought it was good duty. I'm the oddball. Everybody else thought it was the worst thing in the world. I didn't think so. The only trouble I have sharing is my unit wasn't that well known. I mean, some people now know it. Like, I got a hat with one of the pins on it, and some people do recognize that sometimes. You can't go and tell another Vietnam vet or even anybody the things you used to do, because they're going to walk away saying, yeah, right, We did different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't wear Army uniforms, didn't all that stuff. We were different, secret. Our unit was fenced in. Nobody could get down there towards our unit. It was fenced in. As a matter of fact, some people went around one time and hung signs on the fence that said, do not feed the animals. People come in over to do USO shows, like these actors and performers, to put on shows. They couldn't come down to our place. The only person they ever left in line was Neil Armstrong. That's the only one. And they wouldn't let us go to their shows either. The only one show I seen, I was on a fire base one time, and Sammy Davis Jr. came there. I sat down and him and I played a game of spades. It's a card game. We played spades with Sammy Davis Jr. But other than that, no, we were completely separate from everybody. Our MOS was combat intelligence. After 1975, they did away with that. That job does not exist anymore. They done away with it. And, you couldn't talk to anybody about what you were doing at all. All considered secret and everything. Oh yeah, I was out in the field when he actually landed. But then when I got back, one evening we were sitting out back at the picnic table, and there were some some South Vietnamese soldiers that were working with us. And I was sitting there trying to explain to them. There's a man went up there on the moon because the moon was, dinky down,
This man's crazy.
Yeah. So the man went up there.
Weren't you on a plane that got hijacked?
Yeah, coming back. Well, it was supposed to be coming back, going to fly back here, and it was a 747 that landed. See, there at Saigon Airport, regular airlines used to land there to refuel, even though there was a war going on, they'd still land there. this one flight, got a flight in this one 747. So went up there, got on the plane, getting ready to go. Next thing you know, a couple rows up, this guy stands up, and he had this box, and he was going on and on. He'd got a bomb. You know, if they don't take this plane and fly it in certain places, he's gonna blow the plane up and blow us all up. So anyway, he had the plane hijacked. It made it out to the end of the runway, and he got stopped. And that's where it got stopped until he could explain exactly where he wants to go and trying to convince the pilots. Apparently, there was I don't know if it was CIA or what it was, some officer that was on there from one of them government agencies had a gun. Well, he shot the guy, you know, and the guy had this box. So when he shot the guy, and that box went down, they popped open them doors with them slides. Well, I'll tell you what, they show a lot of times on these television shows, everybody rushing down the aisles. Heck no, man, they're going over seats and everything to get out of that thing. And then got down there at the bottom with a big pile of people. The door behind the cabin opened, and the guy opened the door and just grabbed the guy he shot and just threw him out. And that was high, you know, 747 high, he just threw him out the door. And here it wasn't bomb anyways, box of lemons. Yeah, we were still in Vietnam, Tom Newt Air Base, which is outside Saigon. I know what a cobra looks like. Again, sitting down in the jungle on the ground, you know, getting rested, and seeing this snake coming up. So it's crawling up, so I figured, So I reached around, there was this big stick. So I grabbed the stick to poke at him and run him off. Boy, I got the surprise of my life. That old boy raised his head up about that high in the air and did like a hiss you wouldn't believe, and he panned all the way. I thought, ooh.
Didn't have to just watch out for humans, but also the animals too.
The second time I was over on this fire base, living in a sewer pipe. A sewer pipe, sandbags all over it. And there was a little chapel made out of wooden crates and everything where the preacher man built his little chapel right there. And then there was artillery units sitting right near there. Well, they're always pointing a certain direction. Well, late one night, I guess they got some mission where they had to turn them big guns around and shoot. Well, when they shot, the muzzle blast just blew everything away where we were. Blew the guys for church down, just blew everything down. Well, I remember that chaplain. He was really down. His little chapel got knocked down. When time came for me to re-enlist in the Army, I decided to get out. And I was being promoted to E7, which was a senior NCO. And the guy said, you know, the government's promoting you. Like I told him, start a war, I'll stay in. I didn't like stateside, like this peacetime thing, you know. Didn't like it at all. Well, I had to come back. They made me come back. They come and snatched me out of the field. I didn't know I was coming back. I was out on the fire base, getting ready to maybe go on a mission or something. And this guy came right up and said, "Hey, you have to get down to the landing thing. There's a helicopter getting ready to leave. You got to get on it." And I said, "Why?" "Because we just got a message to send you back." So I got a helicopter, flew back, and then it got dark. And I went and seen the first sergeant and said, "What do I have to come back for?" He said, "Pack your stuff. You're getting on an airplane out of here tomorrow." I thought, what? They just threw me out.
So
I mean, because they did something wrong. It was just, you know, pack your shit and leave.
So was that the time that you got sent back in your uniform and your clothes you had on? You didn't even have.
I didn't bring anything back. I just left with what I had on.
So you landed in California.
Yeah.
What happened when you landed in California?
Maybe that was the first time when I come back all raggedy and stuff. You think you're clean, but you're not. Because you know, you're dirty.
Yeah.
You go take a shower and all this red water running off of it because the dirt's red over there.
Uh-huh.
Well, the first time I came back, that's when I got out. The first time I came back, I didn't like it. That's why I went back again. Yeah. But then the second time I come back, I couldn't go back in because they were ending it, you know, it's winding down. There was no room for me. So I just had to put up with here until my time was up. You know, just got out, called it quits. Stayed with my mom and dad for a while, and even then, I didn't more or less live in the house. They had this patio out back with a roof on it and everything. And then, oh, I know, I worked at some factory because I got off at 11 o'clock at night, and I'd come home, and I'd just lay down in the chase lounge, you know, with the out there, and I'd sleep outside every night. My first wife, when I was, no, it's another story. When I was staying at my mom and dad's, when I was sleeping out on the thing, I got woke up one time late at night after I got home about 11:30, and I lay down to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. And I guess you could say the moonlight or something. She was standing there, and I figured I'm dreaming or something. Well, I wasn't. Here she come to visit my mom and dad, and she was staying there a couple of days, and she came walking outside where I was sleeping. I thought I was dreaming, you know. Yeah, nobody told me that she was coming. Yeah, I met my second wife, Janet, and we had a son, Shannon. I got out of the Army and we came to Kansas here. Brian wasn't around much. I didn't see him that much. And then Shannon, me and Shannon were living together because Janet was back, she took off back to Pennsylvania. And then it was just him and I here. It was kind of rough times. We didn't have no money or nothing. Everything worked out. We made it.
You had gone to school to be a heating and air conditioning repairman.
Who did?
You did.
Oh yeah, that's right, I did, yeah. Sure did. I forgot about that. Then I went for work for a company in Manhattan who then got a contract on Fort Riley to take care of all the housing. Did that. And then they lost the contract, and the other guy that got it hired me on as the project manager to run the contract. When he lost the contract, well, by then I was going to be a deputy. It worked out good for a while, but then they were starting, so everybody was leaving Fort Riley. Mm-hmm. So there weren't a bunch of GIs around here to buy stuff.
Oh, okay.
And that was a lot of customers, so we just decided to sell it, get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just knew him there.
Yeah, there was a deputy working there that I met and knew, and so I used to go out and ride around with him sometimes. And I don't know, maybe that's it. Then they had openings at the sheriff's department, so I just applied and took me right away. I was doing television shows for the local television station, fishing, turkey hunting with a bow, and bow fishing, but that come to an end. And then he'd ask questions, you know, well, why do you do that on your bow or something, you know? And we had that incident where a couple of dogs killed a little kid. That made big news all over the place. I had to go to court to testify. That was on court TV. Mm-hmm. And then I also got a phone call from Australia where I had to do an interview on a radio talk show about it.
Was it Robert?
Jeff Roberts.
Jeff Roberts for some award for...
Yeah, we got some life-saving award or something from out in the lake. Rescued them guys, their boat sank. Some guy had a heart attack out in the field. I got there before the ambulance, and the ambulance come. We had to drive out in the field to get this guy. And he was in real bad shape, so they threw him in the ambulance, and it took the two ambulance attendants had to take care of him. So they put him in there, and they said, we need someone to drive the ambulance. Well, I was the only one there. I never drove an ambulance before. So I jumped on the driver's seat, drove the ambulance to the hospital. You know, well, my patrol car was still sitting out in the middle of the field with the door open, the motor running, just sitting out in the middle of the field. So I had to get a ride back out there to get my car. When I got there, the door was shut, everything was locked. It was locked up, door shut. Then this guy comes across the field in the tractor, He said, "Oh, here's your keys." He said, "I found your car there," so I locked it up and took the keys. That Janet, we got divorced,
Okay.
you know, and then a little while later, she wanted to get back together. So we got married again for a short time, and then, well, I don't know, the first one, she got another honey bun when I was in Vietnam. So,
Aw.
Janet, I don't know, she just totally changed. I don't know how to explain it, but she lives back in Pennsylvania, but her new fellow that was back there, he called me here one time on the phone and wanted to know, when you were married to her, did she do this, this, and this, and this? I said, yeah. He said, oh. So, you know, so I don't know.
I'm all shook up.
How did you meet Ann?
When I was contract manager for all the plants on Fort Rush, we were looking for a secretary, and she applied for the job.
And why did you hire Ann?
I don't know. All I know is that you told me one time that there was no way you were hiring those other ladies.
Well, I know that German one. No way. Jeez.
Was Ann the best looking one?
I don't know. I don't remember. Well, she was better looking than the other one, that's for sure. I forget what the deal was the other one. It's just, you know, like I said, just one of the things, you know.
We just worked together every day. I mean, we were with each other all the time.
You know, whatever.
When they had their store and they needed somebody part-time, then I worked in the store on the weekend part-time too. And then my husband was in the military, and so we left and went to Germany. And when I was in Germany, I left there and came back to the United States because he was meeting other people. They still needed help here. Him and Shannon were the only two here. I didn't have a job there. I could come here and go right to work, so that's what happened. I just moved back here, and then we got married a year later.
So do you remember popping the question?
I didn't.
You
Yes,
didn't?
you did.
Huh?
You did to
You
it.
did. You called me up and said, "Oh, hey, I got a marriage license."
Yeah, but you had asked me to marry you a couple of times before
I don't
that.
think so.
Yes, you did. And
You
I told
did.
you, I am not getting divorced and married in the same year.
I don't know. All I know is, first thing that I can remember getting married is when you told me you got a marriage license
Where were you at whenever I told you that?
at the police academy.
Who signed the paperwork to get it?
Oh, you did.
I forged his name.
Oh, see, I knew.
Oh, that's
To get the license, I forged his
Oh,
name.
I didn't know both of us had to sign it. I didn't know that.
It was
Wait.
only his fourth time doing
Yeah.
Yeah, I married Ann, and we had Leslie and Darren. She does the complete opposite of what I tell her to do. She's driving me crazy.
Where was your gun at whenever Darren was born?
Where was it?
Laying in the chair. You took your belt off and laid it in the chair.
Oh, yeah, at the hospital.
Yeah.
What are some ways that you and your family would spend time together?
I don't know. We went on some vacations. We used to go fishing. You know, we had one with our boat. You know, we used to go out in Milford Lake. We went camping a few times in Milford Lake.
When Shannon was little and eating spaghetti, what had happened?
We were eating spaghetti, and you were making a mess, getting it all over everything.
Yeah.
And your mom said, "Look at that, you're making a mess and everything with that spaghetti. Use your head." So you dipped in the spaghetti or rolls it all over your head.
There was one time when he worked at the sheriff's department. I had just talked to him on the phone, and he said he was coming home to eat. And so I heard somebody walk up on the porch, and I just thought it was him. So I went to the door, grabbed the door, yanked it open, and there stood this big old guy standing there with no shirt on, his big old scraggly beard. And I'm like, and I slammed the door back in his face. I'm like, "What are you doing? What do you want? We're just stuck down at the end of the road." So then I let him in the house to use the phone. Here comes Dennis pulling in the driveway in his uniform police car. Those people are thinking, "What the heck? She called the cops on us." And he's like, "What are these people in the house? What are you
Some
doing?"
random person in the house to use a phone? Must have been in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, it was. 'Cause we had a phone hanging on the wall.
No, he was ordained.
No, I've done
Oh,
it
you were
before
already
that.
ordained
Yeah,
before
he was like
Yeah.
scrolling on the internet.
Oh,
and
that's
saw
right.
it.
No,
I remember
nobody
now.
knew I did it until after I
Yeah,
did it.
he
That's
found
why.
the course on the internet and just took it one day.
And I don't.
And
I
then
have no
he
idea
come out of
why.
the computer room one day with his certificate and everything that he printed off and got the license and everything in the mail. And he was like, "Look what I did!"
He's like giggling about it.
I had a parking pass, so I thought he did it to get better parking or
And
something.
then it was like 4 years later. Then we were like, "Hey, you want to just do this? We don't gotta pay somebody."
What's your biggest piece of advice for a happy marriage?
Oh, jeez. As long as you're honest, I believe in honesty a lot. I mean, if you're gonna lie to your buddy or somebody else, a cop or anything, but you shouldn't lie to your spouse, you know.
What's the biggest piece of advice you would give the younger generation?
You can't give this generation nowadays advice on anything. After from what I've been seeing, I have no idea. I mean, this generation now just off the deep end, man. Well, if they want something, they gotta work for it, you know? I mean, they don't want to do that anymore. They don't appreciate anything because they don't have to work for it. I'm not talking about these people. I mean, all them other people you see.
I think you've said many times you can't just think you can't have everything all at once.
Well, yeah, you can't just have your buddy has this new car and new house and new this, and then all of a sudden you want it right away instead of, you know, going step by step working for it. They just want it all right now. You know, it's just look ahead, you know, if I knew then what I know now. But actually, you know, my life wasn't really that bad, I guess, you know. I mean, one thing leads to another. You know, like the butterfly effect. It might seem kind of bad, but if it wasn't for that bad thing, then this wouldn't have happened, and that wouldn't have happened, and then you wouldn't have the good stuff.